Okay, we're going to go over reducing a rational expression. And for Ask Dr. Callahan students, this applies to the Algebra 2 with Trig course, Chapter 1, Lesson 4, number 22. It gives you this expression, 4x to the fourth times x squared plus 3 minus 3x squared times x squared plus 3 squared all over x to the sixth. And it says, please write this expression in its lowest terms. Reduce this fraction, essentially. And when we're reducing a fraction like this, you want to try and pull out any commonalities between this term and that term. Notice that terms are separated by things like subtraction symbols or addition symbols. This is a term and that's a term. So what we have then is both terms have an x squared plus 3 in them, and they also both have an x squared in them. So we can actually factor out x squared times x squared plus 3, and I'm going to put little brackets here to let myself know that I'm writing what goes in the center, and we just sort of rewrite what's left. And 4x to the fourth, if I take out the x squared, becomes 4x squared, and then let me get my highlighter here. The x squared plus 3 we factored out, right? So we don't write that by the 4x squared, and then we leave, we have 3, and then we have, we do put the x squared plus 3 in our second term because of this squared symbol right there. So there's 2 of these in my second term, and I only factored out 1. So then I, again, write everything all over x to the sixth. Be very careful you don't forget the denominator. I've done that before, and it messes up your whole problem. Okay, so then we keep going. We can actually cancel these guys and be left with x squared plus 3. Actually, the numerator doesn't change at all other than to cancel out that x squared, right? And they cancel by subtraction, so we end up with either x to the negative 4 on top or x to the fourth in the denominator. That's a rule of fractions. You can go back and look that up. But that cancels. And then next what we want to do is notice, let me get a different color here. Right here, if I were to do the distributive property on this, I would end up with something that's like terms, right? They would look very similar. So what let's do, let's take this guy right here and move over to our next page so I have more room to write. But we're going to go ahead and do that distributive property there. So we keep the stuff we're not messing with. Go ahead and rewrite this. And then 3 times x squared is 3x squared. And then remember this negative, but it's negative 3 times positive 3, which is actually minus 9. And then if you'll notice here, these guys can subtract. So I end up with x squared minus 9 being multiplied by this x squared plus 3. And it's still all over x to the fourth. There's a property that says if I have a squared minus b squared, that's going to be equal to a plus b times a minus b. And I forget right now what page that's on in the Algebra 2 with Trig textbook, but this is it's a property. And as you can see, x squared minus 9 fits that, right? It's x squared minus 9, and since 9 equals 3 squared, then my a term is x and my b term is 3. And I can do, x plus 3 times x minus 3. So I take that and I put it in right here. So I end up with x squared plus 3 times x plus 3, x minus 3, all over x to the fourth. And since this term right here can't be simplified any further, then this whole thing is actually as reduced as this can become. So we are finished at this point.